Shout Radio Sport.
Police have closed Leeds United's Elland Road Stadium and their club shop as they investigate a security threat. It's understood a threat was made via social media and officers are now carrying out checks. That match gets underway at 5 p.m. Then at 7:45 on Sunday, Northern Ireland welcome Finland to Windsor Park. And in the Women's Super League, there's a Merseyside derby tonight as Everton go up against Liverpool at Goodison Park.
Thanks, Edward. We're talking to Frankie Rockin Smith next. Frankie Rockin Smith is a 21-year-old singer-songwriter and entertainer who's on a mission to keep the spirit of the 50s rock and roll alive. Love for classic rockabilly and artists like Shakin' Stevens and Ricky Nelson is evident in his music and performances, where he shows off his unique shaky legs moves. Despite his age, Frankie isn't interested in following the latest musical trends and instead embraces the timeless sounds of the 50s. And Frankie joins us now. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks, Toby. You alright?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks. So what is it about the 50s music and rockabilly that interests you? Because you wouldn't expect a 21-year-old today to be into that.
26, actually.
Oh, is that out of date?
26 still, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, basically, I grew up listening to a lot of my granddad's old cassette tapes, and my dad had a large record collection, and I just grew up with the family listening to a lot of rock and roll in country. And I think when you listen to the old singers such as Tom Jones, you know, Paul McCartney, Shakin' Stevens, when you go to see them live, they still sound as good live as they do on the record, sometimes better. But, you know, not knocking any particular artist, but some of the artists you go and see today, they don't sound the same live. They're rather tuned or clipped and cut in the studio, and it's all electronic today. Where back in the days when you had great bands such as the Beatles, Michael Jackson, Freddie Mercury, they'd write their own songs, and you had great bands really playing the instruments. So for me, that's what I grew up listening to. But a lot of got made fun a lot at school for it, I suppose, because and even a lot of people say to me today, I mean, 26 years old, how do you expect to remember all these songs? There was a bit of my granddad's days, but I just love the old type music. I love a lot of 80s and 70s modern music as well, but reggae. But for me, that's the music that's always fitted me the best.
And how does it influence your own style? I take it you do a similar genre and don't have all this electronic stuff going on either.
Oh, it's kind of hard because, you know, it's hard getting a band together. I was with a band for just under 6 months or so, and then the drummer went abroad somewhere and done something else. So most of the instruments on the new album I've had to play myself, like guitar, bass and piano. Then I've had to get certain people I know that had drums and stuff. So some of it, you know, I've had to do by keyboard, you know, some adding some strings and trumpets and stuff. So it is hard not to fall into the electronic sound, but I just try to keep it as basic as I can to the old style.
And do you think that listening to it sounds like something that could have been out at the time? Obviously, the recording technology is kind of clearer now, but that aside, does it sound like a song for the 50s? You wouldn't expect it to be new.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I think that if it was about in the days, that I would have probably had a chance of hitting the top 10 or something with it.
Yeah.
But then again, it's not all basic rock and roll that's on this album. There's a lot of country rock, some rhythm and blues. There's quite a bit of a mixture on there. The lead song, the main song I'm releasing as a single on the 27th of March. It's called What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Stronger, and that's sort of a I don't know, it's a bit of a rock ballad. So it's a little bit different than the stuff that I usually do. But I do perform all kinds of music, which is Motown, reggae. I do like some pop music, like Ollie Murs, Robbie Williams, and Bruno Mars. So I cover some of that stuff. To me, like the singers that sings the stuff that I can understand.
Is there a particular theme to this album in particular? Does it differ from ones you've done before?
I've done cover albums before, and of rock and roll, reggae, Motown, but I've never done my own debut. Like, this would be my debut album, so I've never done my own album before. I worked on a few songs when I was about 13, 12, started recording in the studio, wrote a couple of songs, didn't do anything with them. Then a few years later, wrote a couple of more, and same again, I didn't do anything with the songs, but so I went back over making the backing tracks with guitar, piano, bass, just getting a basic demo there, and got some people to work on the tracks with me. And then we got a good 7 or 8 tracks done, and then I came across the idea of writing about something that's happened in life, which for me, the single that I'm releasing is called What Doesn't Kill You Stronger. That's my favourite track on the album, because that's about the COVID situation of us being in the lockdown, and the viruses were killing people were losing loved ones, and then we had to go for that for almost 2 years or so through lockdown, and wearing a mask everywhere we had to go. I had to give up my performing live. It was pretty hard for work, and I had COVID twice myself. We lost a couple of family members during the COVID situation, my mum's uncle and my dad's auntie, so we lost people. Then when it was all over, it makes you appreciate life more. When we were allowed out again, allowed to perform and go back to work, it made me appreciate life so much more. And after getting through it myself, I had COVID twice, didn't know how I was going to go because I didn't have the injection, but thank God me and my family, we pulled through it okay. And it made me appreciate life more. Yeah. So that's what that song's about, and that's why I named the album after the single What Doesn't Kill You Makes You Stronger, because that is really a really close song.
Well, let's play your version of The Wanderer, and we'll come back and talk to you more after this.
Whoa, well, I'm the type of guy who'll never settle down where pretty girls are. You know that I'm around. I kiss them and I love them because the meter are the same. Well, hug them and I squeeze them. They don't even know my name. They call me the Wanderer. Yeah, the Wanderer. I roam around, 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 around. Oh, and it's slow on my left. There's a Mary on the right, and Janie is the girl that I'll be with tonight. And when she asks me which one I love the best, I tear open my shirt and show the rosy on my chest. They call me the Wanderer. Yeah, the Wanderer. I roam around, 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 around. Oh, well, I roam from town to town. I go for life without a care, and I'm happy as a clown. With my tube is divine, but I'm going nowhere. Well, I'm the type of guy who likes to roam around. I'm never in one place. I roam from town to town. When I find myself revolting for some girl, yeah, I'm riding that car of mine. I drive around the world. They call me the Wanderer. Yeah, the Wanderer. I roam around, 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 around. Let's go! Well, I'm the type of guy who likes to roam around. I'm never in one place. I roam from town to town. When I find myself revolting for some girl, yeah, I'm riding that car. I drive around the world. They call me the Wanderer. Yeah, the Wanderer. I roam around, 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 around. Yeah, the Wanderer. Yeah, the Wanderer. I roam around, 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 around. Yeah, the Wanderer. Yeah, the Wanderer. I roam around, around, around.
We're still joined by Frankie Rockin Smith. That's his version of The Wanderer. And you have a love of performing live, don't you? So COVID would just be devastating for you.
Oh, it did. It ruined it. It caused so much anxiety, and it just wasn't. I didn't feel right myself being locked in all the time, and it caused anxiety, and just it took so much hard work getting back to performing again. When I did return, I was about 15 and a half stone, about 3 stone heavier than I normally was, and it took a lot of getting off. but I'm back into it now. I've been fully booked throughout the year, so doing all right.
Yeah. Did you find it quite a creative time for you despite that, or did you spend a lot of the time building up those stones?
Well, yeah, it did one good thing for me. So that was a time I got to write a good few songs. One particular song I wrote, which was a gospel song intended, I Don't Deserve You, which was a song for God. I had to slightly change the words for this album, as I couldn't really put a gospel song on with a normal music album, so it's slightly different, but that's on the album as well, a song called I Don't Deserve You. So I wrote that during the COVID situation, and the only thing I had to do was go live on Facebook, and through that I built up a lot of fans performing on some of the groups to support the COVID and the NHS, and that we did a lot of stuff like that. So it built up a lot of fans for me through that, and got me, with my manager now, Barbara, it got me introduced to her, which got me a lot of bookings, and she's done a fabulous job on getting me fully booked.
Wow.
For the last 2 years now.
That's quite impressive, because I think for a lot of people, those Facebook Lives, they were all right. You had to substitute live performances for something, but they weren't quite the same. And I guess for you, that's probably still the case, but you've got so many new fans from it that it was definitely a great experience by the sounds of it.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I got to meet a lot of people when doing the lives. It was just nice to communicate with people, even though it was through a phone or a screen, but it was just nice to speak to someone. But when we were finally allowed out again and see some of my family and meet some of my fans again at the gigs, it was just so nice. That's so nice. It makes you appreciate life more.
And your music has been described as timeless and classic and legendary. How does that make you feel?
Oh, I'm speechless. It means a lot. Sometimes it touches my heart for the comments and the words that I've got. It's just amazing. I just can't describe it, really. I'm speechless. So just a big thank you to everyone that's supported me over the years.
Do you ever get compared to famous rock and roll and rockabilly artists?
Yeah, a lot of the times. Some people say to me, oh, I love your version a bit better than the original. To me, I'm never going to be as good as them or popular as them, but a lot of people say, oh, you're similar to Shakin' Stevens with the dance moves, and someone's the voice, or someone's Ricky Nelson, and I get Elvis all the time, because Elvis was obviously like the prototype for rock and roll. He was a figurehead, so basically everybody who sees a rock and roll artist, they think you're an Elvis tribute, and I say, no, I'm just a rock and roll, like I'm doing a lot of rock and roll stuff. There's so many great rock and roll singers I look up to.
And if you don't mind me saying, you look like a rock and roll artist from the 50s. Is that a deliberate thing, or has that just happened? Is that just who you are anyway?
That's who I am, yeah. I walk about like this, I suppose the hairstyle a little bit, and a lot of people say that. When I'm at the gigs, I wear the sort of rockabilly shirt, white shoes.
Does it ever annoy you that people say, oh, you're just like Elvis or like Shakin' Stevens? Do you not think, but I want to be Frankie?
That's right, yeah. It does. It's a compliment in some ways, but then it gets a bit, I don't know, you want to be yourself at times. Somebody said to me, oh, you sound just like Elvis when you sing that song, and you sound like Ricky Nelson when you sing that one. Oh, how do you sound like the original artist? And I thought, that's not good. So I try improving and adding my own sort of feel to it. But I do try to always be myself. I think with this album that I've released now, that is why I'm so proud of this album, and as it's me, and it's everything I've learned. I mean, everybody is taken a little bit from somebody. I mean, if you look at a lot of the rock and roll artists, they took a little bit from Elvis in some way. If you look at Cliff Richard when he was younger with the hair, Shakin' Stevens with the clothes and stuff, Ricky Nelson, and it's like even Michael Jackson, he was the king of pop, legend, but he even admitted himself he took a little bit from James Brown, Jackie Wilson. So you had the little dance moves or the spin by Jackie Wilson or James Brown. So everybody takes a little bit from somebody or was influenced and grew up listening to somebody. But I think it's good that you try to be yourself and be your own person.
Yeah.
That's what I do try to do.
Well, let's play your song Runaway, and we'll come back and talk to you more after we hear it. As I walk alone, I wonder what went wrong with our love that was so strong. And as I still walk on, I think of the things we've done together while our hearts were young. Oh, I'm walking in the rain, tears are falling and I feel joined by Frankie Rockin Smith. That's his version of Runaway. If you take any musical artist today, if you look at who they were influenced by and then who those influences were influenced by, eventually you'll get back to rock and roll. I guess we kind of look at it today like the dawn of popular music. Of course, there's stuff before that, but this is when it really got going.
Yeah, I mean, but a lot of it came from rhythm and blues.
Yeah,
and I think that's where R&B came into it, and they sort of take a lot of the rhythm and blues singers were like Fats Domino and I think Chuck Berry and so many before them, but they didn't get the rights because at the time it was mostly white artists that was getting more fame, and they wasn't making it as big as what the white artist was until that period had passed. But a lot of it came from rhythm and blues, and it was rockabilly. Country, I think, came into it, and then it came, I think Elvis basically started off as rock and roll.
And Elvis has, of course, had a movie made about his life. Would you want a movie made about your life?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Yeah, that would be a dream come true.
Who would play you? I guess they're not alive yet, because they'd probably make it years in the future, wouldn't they?
Yeah. My son looks a little bit like me. He knows he could be the part. He's 4 at the moment, so who knows in 20 years. Yeah,
that would be great casting, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And who would you say your audience is? Is it maybe older people who are like 80 now and grew up listening to rock and roll originally, or anybody that likes rock and roll generally? Because I guess my point is, if somebody's going to listen to rock and roll, they'd probably go for Elvis or stuff from 70 years ago or so. So who do you think you're appealing to?
It's a bit of a mix, really, but I suppose it's most of the people that understand the music that I do, I suppose, are from 40 onwards. I do a lot of social clubs, and mostly the audience are between 40 and 70, I suppose, or 80. But there's some younger fans as well that follow my music, but mostly are between 40 and 70, I'd say. It's just mostly the older generation that understands. But a lot of them don't do like my Motown stuff that I do. Some's 80s fans, and they like some of the Spandau Ballet stuff and Michael Jackson, a couple of covers I do. It depends on the night, whether they've booked me full. If they've got just a rock and roll night, then I'll stick to that. If they've got a mix, or sometimes they'll just have a reggae night where I do a lot of UB40 and Bob Marley and stuff like that. But we've done a couple of cover albums of UB40, reggae and Bob Marley, stuff like that, Motown album.
That's the thing, I suppose, when it's performing live, you wouldn't expect any kind of barriers where people would go, I'm just going to listen to Elvis or whatever, because Elvis is dead, so you can't go and see him. So people would definitely be up for seeing somebody like you. And do you think that people coming to your shows increases people listening to your albums and sales? Yeah, because every gig I do, it leads on to something else. Somebody approach me and say they've got this offer, or they know somebody who's looking to go into something else. So most of the time it always leads to something else, and they end up joining my fan page and subscribing to my YouTube channel. So it always leads to another fan, and I always get a couple of fans from every show. And they take a card or something. So it does pretty good for me. Performing live, it's the only way you could get out there, pay your dues and do your thing, and just hope for the best. But it usually does alright. I do alright from the gigs. Yeah. When people come, do they come in big groups of families, maybe multi-generational? And have the audience started getting younger or older?
I don't know. It's a bit of a mixture, really. Yeah, a lot of family people do turn up, and there's a particular family that are always there with their 2 daughters, about 15 and 16. They're massive fans of mine. Wow. Always having photos too. I'm trying to sign every CD I do, cover CD I bring at the gigs. So it's a bit of a mixture with the age, really. I've got a few young fans from 10, 11. They come along and they love my music. So I've got over 4,000 followers on my page, and there's about 2,000 on my normal Facebook profile, and there's about 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. So they're all basically a different age, anything really from 15 to 70, I suppose. So there's quite a big following there, a mixed group of people.
And on stage, you're known for your shaky legs when you perform. How did you develop that move?
My dad, he used to go to a lot of the rock and roll clubs, and from an early age he was a big rock and roll fan. He taught me from 4-year-old, I think I was 3 or 4. He taught me how to dance, and there's a bit of a mixture of my moves between Elvis, Shakin' Stevens. There's a few of my own moves that I put in as well, and just everything I've learned really over the years but you just sort of feel with the music. I never had a dance lesson or nothing like that, but it's just basically I feel the music, and I've always learned to just every beat, that's when I move or do something, and just rehearsing at home, really just adding stuff and adding different parts, and it all goes together in the end.
Well, we'll play another one of your songs. We'll go for Stand By Me, and we'll come back to you after this.
When the night is come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. So darling, stand by me. Whoa, stand by me. Oh, stand now. Stand by me. Stand by me. If the sky that we look upon should tumble and fall, all the mountains should crumble to the sea, I won't cry, I won't cry, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. So darling, stand by me. Whoa, stand by me. Whoa, stand now. Stand by me. Stand by me. And darling, stand by me. Whoa, stand by me. Whoa, stand now. Stand by me. Stand by me. Whenever you're in trouble, won't you stand by me? Whoa, stand by me. I know you need me.
Frankie Rockin Smith is still with us. That's his version of Stand By Me. Do you think the fact that you haven't had a dance lesson actually helps you, because you wouldn't overthink it? You're just doing what you want to do.
Yeah, you're not pressured so much. But I always memorised the moves. For instance, I did the Wanderer by Dion and the Bellments, and that I invented a move where I put my hand in the air and go round on one leg 3 times. So when he goes around, so every time I do that, I go around on one leg, and everybody remembered me from that. And every time I see someone, they say, "Oh, look, do the move." So yeah, there's quite a lot of my own moves in there, but very, very energetic show I put on, because a lot of the stuff I do is fast, so stuff like Great Balls of Fire and a whole lot of shaking, and you've got to keep up the breath for how quick they are. And like the song Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry, is the words are so fast, you've got to keep them in and also dance as well, and then comes the instrumental, the solo, where you've got to pretty much let all your energy out and then come back in and try to get your breath back. A lot of people say, "Oh, how do you keep up with the energy? It takes so much." I'm drowned wet in sweat time the end of the gig, but a lot of people say, "Do you do that? Do you keep fit? Do you do that?" I just work basically Monday to Friday, and it helps me keep fit. And if I feel a bit achy or creaky, I'll get to the gym.
Yeah.
I just try to do my best to keep fit. I was very unfit during the lockdown, and when I first came back in 2021, I did 2 songs and I was breathing heavy. Wow. And I just couldn't. I thought, I'm not going to be able to do this. But I suppose I got to the 5th, 6th, 7th gig, I started getting back into it again. Also, my voice wasn't what it was at the time. It wasn't as good as before I stopped, because my throat kept drying out after a few songs. I had to keep drinking water a lot. And now I I think I'm at my best I've ever been. I'm at my peak now because I do a full 2-hour show and my voice gets stronger throughout the gig instead of drying out now. So that's a good thing for me now. I think I'm improving by that.
And your show is full of energy and joy, but it has a lack of ego. So how do you stay grounded when you've got such a massive energy show and everybody's looking at you?
Oh, it does sometimes. The hardest part for me is when you're starting, when you've got to walk out, and sometimes you can get a boring audience where they just a little clap and it makes you feel, oh no, we've got to get these going now. And you've got to really try to say, come on everybody, get your hands in the air, let's get those hands in. Try to involve the audience and do a few jokes or something just to warm them up a bit. But sometimes you get your good audience and sometimes you get your bad. I'm better with a larger audience. The bigger the audience, I'm more energetic and more better. And a lot of people say, oh, do you get nervous? I get nervous before every gig, but after that first song I warm up and then I'm okay after that. But I think the bigger the audience, if I had to sing in a room just full of a couple of people, I'd be really nervous. I'd be terrified to sing.
So awkward.
Yeah, it's awkward. But when there's a large audience and they're cheering, it gives you a buzz.
The bigger the audience, the more likely that there will be people who are full of energy there and looking to enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, one of my favourite gigs that I do is in Canvey Island, and that's like a rock and roll club. And the audience there are always they're up against the stage and it's completely packed, and you got to shout to hear yourself in there. So speakers are full blast, so you're hearing. I'm getting into it more, and it's just so it gives me such a great buzz when I'm performing. There's nothing better than seeing other people enjoy themselves from my music.
Well, what's coming up for you after this album? Have you got any more projects and singles and shows on the way?
Well, I'm hoping to get another single released from this album. I'll have to decide it with my management and see what they think. I think I'd like to get a fast one out there. This is quite a slow song because it's a really close song to me and a very heart-touching song for me. As I mentioned, it was about the COVID situation and stuff that's happened in my life. But I think the next song would be a fast one off the album, like a rock and roll one.
Sounds exciting.
And yeah, but and as for the rest of the year, I suppose I'll just be promoting the album.
Yes. Well, in the meantime, this album comes out in May, right? And then the first single from the album comes out on the 27th of March, which is very soon indeed. And that's just in all the usual places, I take it?
Yeah, it'll be on all the major streaming sites, Spotify, Deezer, iTunes and Amazon and Google Play. So it'll be available, like I say, from the 27th of March. And then the album will be available on the 10th of May. So there'll be a limited edition of signed CDs as well available for the people that still want to buy the CDs. So that'll be available rather for Amazon, or they'll probably contact me for Facebook or social media.
Excellent. Well, many thanks for talking to us today. It's been great to have you on.
Oh, thank you, Toby. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.